Welcome to Click to Learn More, the show that sounds like clickbait.
But it's actually two dorks.
I'm Dorm.
I'm Lidi.
Today, Lidi,
Dorm.
we're going to talk about everybody's favorite president.
Abraham Lincoln.
No.
Obama.
No.
Bill Clinton.
No.
Ben Franklin.
Millard Fillmore. We're going to talk
Hamilton.
about Millard Fillmore.
I said two things that weren't presidents. I have some really funny things real quick I'd like to say about Millard Fillmore. If you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
You've heard of Milli and Vanilli.
Uh-huh.
Now you've heard of Millie Philly.
Can I tell you...
Is that one of yours?
That throughout this episode, I've given Millard Fillmore nicknames because his name is a lot of fun to dunk on.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
One of my paragraphs starts Millie the Philly. So
Millie the Philly, all right.
we
so
both
same
were
brains.
there, yeah.
Maybe we could talk about his less popular cousin, Millard Philless.
Very good. Not one I thought of.
Did you know that he had a pet duck named Mallard Fillmore?
Ah, okay. So that was actually a comic book character.
Okay. Well, did you know that he also had another pet duck named Millard Fillmore?
Okay, I didn't expect the second duck joke. Very good.
Boom.
How many more of these you got?
I have two more.
Okay.
His alter ego was Millie Cyrus.
Very good.
If you were curious.
Yeah.
All right, let's get wiggy with it. I'm ready.
Wow, good research.
Yeah.
It's funny because I call him Mill Smith later.
Really?
Yeah.
Even better.
I didn't even make the getting wiggy with a joke. Okay, so you're probably wondering, listener and Lidi, why I chose Millard Fillmore to talk about.
Yeah.
So I chose this for two reasons.
Okay.
One, I really want to do an episode on a president that nobody knows about.
Check.
And I was looking into fun little stories and facts about different presidents.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the story of that in a minute.
Okay.
The other thing is that when I was a little child...
A little boy,
I was allowed exactly one book. Just kidding. My mom would kill me for saying that. 2 books. I had 2 books. And one of them was a book called Yo Millard Fillmore.
Yo?
Yes. Yo Millard Fillmore.
Not like the Spanish I.
No, like Yo MTV Raps, but Yo Millard Fillmore. Now this book is the most me book to ever exist.
Okay.
Because it was remembering the order of the presidents based on puns based in their name. So it was like, and I apologize, I don't remember more of them, but you can find like the first 10 pages online. So it was like, George Washington, wash a ton of clothes. And then think about all the atoms in the water in the washer. And then think about, so that's how it went on. So it was called Yo Millard Fillmore. It was part of I think like a series called like Yo Education, because it was like Yo Sacramento.
I think this is where 75% of your humor came from.
Yeah, I was on the cutting room floor. So for some reason, Millard Fillmore's name has always stuck with me. Okay. Well, not for some reason. It's that book. That's the reason.
There is a reason.
That's the reason.
Okay.
The other thing is that there was a story, and I'll tell this very quickly, because I have a lot of notes. Millard Fillmore was a very perverse bibliophile. Sorry.
Okay.
Loved books.
Loved having sex with books.
Loved having sex with books.
Yeah.
No, he loved books, and he loved them so much so that he was responsible for starting the White House Library.
Dang, okay.
So not the Library of Congress. That's kind of started way back when, but he was the first person to put a library in the White House.
Okay.
He actually spent some of his White House funds on the first book.
So before that, they didn't read?
Until Congress approved the funding. Okay. The first book he bought was a dictionary. Adequate. I mean, if you don't have the internet, dictionary would be great.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair book to buy.
Yeah. And so he loved books, and you'll see why in a little bit. But when the Library of Congress, under his presidency, was on fire, no one knows who set the fire, but it just caught fire. Okay. He himself ran down and started helping put out the fire.
He lit that fire so he could look like a hero to put it out.
But he rode the then fire carriage, because it wasn't a fire truck yet. It was horse-drawn. Yeah.
Do they spit water out of their mouths?
The horses? Yes. Yeah. And then he actually commanded the Navy come help. Because it was like a 3-day thing. Because it's huge. And then like some of the members of Congress, so inspired by what he was doing, came to help. And they eventually put it out, and they lost 35,000 books. Oh, no. But by the end of his presidency, he'd restored all the books.
The same books that were there?
Yes.
Dang, okay.
So,
all right.
Thought that was a really cool story, and I was like, I want to learn more about this dude.
All right, come through, Millard Fillmore. I like you now. Books. Book boy.
So, those are my 2 stories.
Nerd.
So ever since I've been a little kid, like I said, I've remembered Millard Fillmore. If you were to ask me to name all the presidents, I would remember his name.
Okay.
I'm one of the few people who remember him.
Okay.
Because Henry Roedinger, who's a professor at University of Washington, St. Louis, has been doing a survey on incoming college students on the names of presidents since 1973.
Wow.
So for 25 years now. Only about 8% of all incoming students remembered Millard Fillmore. So the way he did this test was he would just give them a blank list and say, write down as many presidents as you can remember. Then he would show them flashcards of different names, and all you had to say was, yes, they were a president, no, they weren't a president.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
In that test, Millard Fillmore averaged about 65% correct identification, which is low because most presidents laid around the 80% mark.
Yeah. Almost failing.
It's so low, in fact, that more people thought Alexander Hamilton was a president than Millard Fillmore. And a lot of this predates the musical, so it's not just that.
So that kind of makes sense to me in a weird way, right? Because he's on money.
Right, he's on $10.
So I'm sure people also thought Ben Franklin was the president because he's on money.
Yeah.
So.
But I thought that was fascinating, that someone who was actually president was forgotten more than someone who was never president.
Interesting.
Do you want to know who was at the bottom of the list? As far as, like, just naming them.
Yes.
It wasn't Millard Fillmore. And the Roedinger, the professor, attributed this to him having a unique name. Because Millard Fillmore, at least, if you can even think of something close to it, you're going to think of Millard Fillmore.
Yeah.
Chester Arthur was the least named.
Yeah. Okay.
Very bland name.
Yeah.
I was having this discussion earlier today because I was talking to my boss about how I was going to do a thing on Millard Fillmore.
Right.
And I was like, I think the hardest presidents to remember are the ones after 10 before Lincoln, and then the ones after Lincoln up until, like, the 20th century. Yeah. That weird, like, 1800 span that's not Lincoln is really hard to remember.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they were both pretty often forgotten. So, it kind of makes me sad that this guy is forgotten.
Yeah.
Not because he was, like, a great man or a great president, but think of, this guy was the most powerful... They always say the most powerful person in the free world. But at least he was the most powerful person in the United States for 3 years and couldn't, and that's correct, by the way. I know it sounded weird, but it is. And he still couldn't be remembered by the public today. Yeah. So it's kind of sad. So I want to talk about Millard Fillmore. Yeah. Because I think, like, he deserves to be talked about, and nobody remembers him, and maybe I can make one person remember Millard Fillmore, and I've done my job.
You made me remember him.
There you go.
You made me Google him, which is more than I've ever done about him, so...
So to preface, most of my sources for this episode come from two places.
Okay.
WhiteHouse.gov.
Nice.
Pretty awesome source.
I don't know. That sounds pretty suspicious.
Yeah. And the Miller Center, which is a nonpartisan affiliate of the University of Virginia that specializes in presidential scholarship, public policy, and political history.
And beer. Yes. And Miller time, specifically.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay. So that's a pretty solid source if you ask me. And that's the one I actually referred to more because the professor emeritus of University of Virginia wrote all of the things on Millard Fillmore, and he's like the nation's foremost authority on the Whig Party, which Millard Fillmore was a member of the Whigs, and so pretty good source.
Get wiggy with it.
So Millard Fillmore, who has no middle name, by the way, really just named Millard Fillmore.
Okay, he could have just gone the Madonna way and been Millard, but that's fine.
You know, there's another president who doesn't have a middle name. Who? Harry Truman. The S stood for nothing.
It didn't...
Nope. Harry S. Truman, the S doesn't stand for anything.
It was, stop asking me.
Yeah.
I don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. He was born in Summerhill, New York, which is part of the Finger Lakes region, on January 7th, 1800.
Dang.
So he rang in the new century pretty early on. Millphil from Summerhill was the second of 8 children to farmer Nathaniel Fillmore and Phoebe Fillmore, formerly Phoebe Millard. Therein lies his name. His name is literally his mom's maiden name and his dad's name.
Which I think was fairly common in the time.
Yeah. The Fillmores were a poor family who struggled to farm the rocky soil of Cayuga County, New York. Nathaniel Fillmore arranged a clothmaker apprenticeship for young Millie F. at the ripe old age of 15. Fillmore would be worked, quote, nearly to death, end quote, according to the Miller Center, an experience that would no doubt shape Fillmore's view on slavery as a president. Fair. He was so desperate, he borrowed $30, nearly $500 by today's standard. I did the math.
Holy jeez.
And bought himself out of apprenticeship. He then walked 100 miles to get back home.
He would walk 100 more.
Thank you. Millie Vafili set off on his next pursuit, learning.
Learning, apostrophe.
Now 17, He attended school and read every book he could get his hands on. So they said that his dad, Nathaniel, had 2 books at home, and it was a dictionary and the Bible. And he read them front to back so many times. Like, he was just starving for knowledge. The teacher there, Abigail Powers, would be an incredible influence on his life. She was the first person to ever encourage him to be anything other than a tradesperson.
Heck yeah, teachers.
She loaned him books, mentally challenged him, and encouraged him in all pursuits. Millard Highlife would soon begin a clerkship with a local judge, and he embraced the laborious bookwork with great veracity. Alongside his legal pursuit, he pursued Abigail Powers, who was impressed with his work ethic and accepted his proposal in 1819.
Wait.
She was only 2 years older than him.
This was his teacher?
Yes. She was only 2 years older than him.
She was only 2 years older than him and she was his teacher?
Yes.
Dang.
Because he was gone to apprenticeship, so he's in school later than he normally would be.
Alright. That's just, okay.
Things moved rather smoothly for old Kilmill, as by 1826, he had been accepted to the New York bar and also the legal bar. Hey-o!
Hey!
I literally wrote hey-o in my notes.
You wrote...
Right there, top.
You wrote hey-o.
I wrote hey-o.
He wrote hey-o.
And he opened his law practice in East Aurora, New York. 1826 was a big year for Motown Fillmore as he finally married his beloved Abigail. So by 1826, he was 26.
26.
It's very easy because he was born in 1800.
Okay.
It's just whatever year.
26 when he got married.
Yeah, he got married at 26 and he proposed at 19. So it took him a little while.
So he was younger than his bride. Mm-hmm. Was that common during the time? I would feel like the men were normally more like advanced in age than their wives in the.
And he pursued her.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
She was so encouraging. I mean, she was a great influence on his life. So go for it.
I mean, she made him be the man he was. So
and they stayed together. So good for them.
A+. Good job, Abigail.
Oops, sorry.
She made him a president.
Well.
Oh no! Oh no! What goes bad?
No.
I thought you were gonna say an Abigail was a murderer.
And Abigail died. I mean, she did eventually. Millard Fillmore was flung into politics in the weirdest way that I've ever heard of.
Okay.
In the early 1800s, most politicians were Freemasons.
Yes.
You're familiar with Freemasons.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you don't know, if you're not from the U.S., Freemasons are like a fraternal society.
Secret society.
Yeah, and they're kind of notorious for like hiding a lot of stuff. William Morgan, a former Freemason himself in New York, was on the precipice of writing a tell-all expose against the organization when he was kidnapped and never seen again.
Okay, well, here we go.
Most people, I think rightfully so, assumed that Morgan was the target of a Freemason attack.
Yeah.
So an anti-Masonic party was created in part of Western New York, or in part in Western New York. It was across the nation, but it had a really hotbed in Western New York, where Millard worked and lived, so he joined the party.
Was this the Whigs?
We'll get there.
Okay.
It's also important to note that Andrew Jackson, the president at the time, was like a lead Freemason. So most people with political power were some sort of Freemason.
He was also kind of crazy.
Andrew Jackson? Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew Jackson is buck wild. We might do an episode on him.
You're more than welcome to do an episode on him. He's crazy.
You could tell a lot of stories about
He's
Andrew
Jackson.
Jackson.
He's a crazy person.
Because of his prominence in the area and his reputation as a lawyer, soon the leadership of the anti-Masons would approach the not yet 30 Fillmore to run for state legislature. In 1829, Millard began his first of what would become 3 terms in the New York State Assembly. His main platform, debtor's prison reform. So if you're not familiar with the term of debtor's prison, back in the early 1800s and late 1700s, you could get thrown into jail for not paying your debts. A lot of people viewed this as ridiculous, and so it...
And they would take your stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
They did that in Roman times, too.
Mm-hmm.
This was carried over from
It's sort of a form of bankruptcy, but you're in jail now, which is kind of bizarre. I think it was Charles Dickens' father was in debtor's prison for a long time, or he himself was in debtor's prison.
Shoot.
And he worked as a child to get him out or something.
It's the best of times, is the worst of times, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This platform of debtor's prison reform played well to citizens in Fillmore's district, a farming district, and he joined the House of Representatives in 1832. By 1834, the anti-Masons had merged with the Whigs, all in opposition to President and notable Freemason Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
So the Whigs didn't like Andrew Jackson's platform.
Cool.
Anti-Masons didn't like Andrew Jackson because he was a Mason.
Yeah.
They teamed up.
I'm on board. So he's 34 at this time. Okay.
Yes. One of the lead officials of the Anti-Masons of New York was a newspaper publisher by the name of, this is why history is so rad, Thurlow Weed.
Thurlow Weed.
Thurlow. And his last name was just Weed.
Thurlow Weed.
Who quickly took over the New York Whig Party. Weed had helped Fillmore rise to power, and the two were well associated. Weed vehemently opposed slavery, as did Fillmore, but Fillmore believed in compromise while Weed did not.
Ooh.
This is foreshadowing.
Okay.
In Fillmore's last leg of Congress, from 1841 to 1843, he was named chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, a thing that still exists today, which oversees all taxes and financial issues. So a pretty big, powerful spot to be in Congress. There he would meet like-minded position by the There he would find a like-minded politician by the name of Henry Clay, famed
boy.
Kentuckian who has 2 counties in Kentucky named after him.
Kentucky boy who tried to be president multiple times. Didn't work.
Yes, he did. We'll get there.
Didn't work out.
The 2 men agreed that only compromise could keep the country together. It helped that Clay was the party leader for the Whigs at the time.
Ah, okay.
So Millard Fillmore, bumping elbows with the right people,
Yep.
agrees politically with Henry Clay, who was the leader of the Whigs. Everything going kind of smoothly for old Millard Fillmore.
Punching up.
In 1843, Fillmore vacated his spot in the House in pursuit of the 1844 Whig vice presidential nomination as Henry Clay's vice president. Thurlow Weed, this is a quote from the Miller Center again, convinced, or more accurately ordered, end quote, Millie Putty to run for governor of New York instead. He lost in a close race, and in his defeat blamed abolitionists, recent Catholic immigrants,
Okay.
and you guessed it, Thurlow Weed.
Ooh.
Fillmore broke ties with Weed. Henry Clay lost to Democrat James Polk, the 11th president of the United States. So both were kind of lost on their luck there. Looking for any political role to pursue, Fillmore won an election for New York's comptroller. Do you actually know what a comptroller is? Because I did not.
So I think a comptroller doesn't do a ton of stuff. It's
Right.
just like, it's kind of just a title.
Yes, I always thought that too. Apparently that's the chief financial overseer.
Okay, because I've always heard that it's kind of just like a...
Do-nothing job. And I think it is in like smaller cities.
Because nobody really runs for it. It just...
Right,
You
yeah.
don't run opposed, basically,
Right,
normally.
exactly. Also, I read one thing one time that was like, you're pronouncing these words wrong. And it's like controller. That's how you're supposed to say that? And I was like,
Controller?
no, it's spelled comptroller.
It's got an M and a P in it.
Yeah, it's not controller.
It's comptroller.
So he won an election for New York's comptroller, chief financial overseer, in such a landslide that it instantly made him a candidate for Whig's 1848 presidential pursuit. So he won the backup thing.
Yeah.
So much so that the Whigs were like, "This is our guy."
So he's 48 now.
Yes, yeah.
So
you're
he's
right.
gone a very long time in government, like trying to.
Well, he's not 48 yet. He's. They're eyeing him for the 48 position. This would have been 44.
Oh, okay.
By 1848, though, fill in the blank was still loyal to Henry Clay. However, the Mexican War, which took place between April 25th, 1846 and February 2nd, 1848, made a star out of 2 military figures. Zachary Taylor, whose rough and tough exterior gave him the nickname Old Rough and Ready,
Okay. That's what they called me in high school.
while General Winfield Scott, refined and pompous, was given Old Fuss and Feathers.
That's what they called me in high school.
There you
too.
go. Yeah, I knew you were going to goof on
I
those.
had two nicknames.
They're both very good.
That's very good nicknames.
Andrew Jackson set the trend of rough military leaders being popular electoral candidates. Andrew Jackson was beloved at the time.
Yeah.
Thurlow Weed maneuvered Taylor to the top of the ballot for presidential nominees within the party.
Okay.
Thurlow Weed was pulling a lot of strings.
Yeah.
And he secured nomination in the 4th vote. So instead of Henry Clay being nominated for president, it was Zachary Taylor. Seeing a Louisiana military slave owner win enraged Northern Whigs.
Ooh.
Because a lot of them were anti-slavery.
Yeah.
And a split between Cotton Whigs and Conscience Whigs seemed imminent. That's what they sort of called their 2 camps. In an effort to gather the fractured party, Daniel Webster was offered the VP spot, but refused, calling Taylor an, quote, illiterate frontier colonel, end quote. Daniel Webster loved just talking some smack, and I love him for it. Fillmore was tapped and accepted in hopes that the pairing could split the geographical distance for any date. So it was the old strategy. You see this in presidential strategies still today. You never get 2 people from the same region.
Yeah.
So they got somebody from the South and somebody from the North. Now you have to remember, in 1848, there were only like 30 states, I think. No, 29 states.
I have no idea.
I just know because I looked today.
Oh.
Wisconsin was minted in 1848, I think. But so the expanse didn't go quite as far west.
Okay.
So north and south, if you had somebody from the north and somebody from the south, you were pretty well covered.
Gotcha.
In all your bases. So that was important for them to do. I already read that part. Both major parties avoided speaking on slavery. So the Democrats and the Whigs. So I think, if I have my roadmap correctly, the Democrats at the time were what Republicans now would become.
Okay.
Or they would become the Republicans now.
Okay.
The Whigs kind of dropped out. And then Republicans rose up, but they indeed became Democrat. There's a weird name change that happened some point in history, and I never remember what it is.
Well, there were Democratic Republicans.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
So
Lincoln was the first Republican president, but he aligned with what became the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And then so the Democrats at the time that I'm saying this are now what we would call the GOP, because they're the oldest party. Both major parties avoided speaking on slavery as it was the hot button topic of the time. Since new land from the Mexican War meant a question of slavery expansion was at play. Do we let these new states have slaves? Do we not? Right. What do we do? In addition to this, a turbulent third party led by ex-President Martin Van Buren, number 8.
8. Yeah, I wanted to say 7 or 8.
Compromising of abolitionists, barn burners, which is a name derived from someone who would burn a barn to get rid of rats in reference to destroying banks.
Yeah.
So they were nearly anarchists.
Burn it down. Yeah.
And conscience Whigs. They named themselves the Free Soil Party.
Okay, I very briefly remember this from 8th grade history class.
Yeah. So it was, to give you a picture of the landscape, it was Democrats, Whigs, Free Soil Party.
Okay.
In a close
and
race,
they just gave out soil. They just gave you cups,
yeah, that was their whole campaign.
Free soil.
In a close race between Zachary Taylor and Michigander Senator Lewis Cass, who was the Democratic nominee.
Okay.
Taylor would emerge narrowly victorious. Both parties tried to out the other's true stance of slavery, and both struggled to neutralize. So they're like, no, he believes in slaves. No, he doesn't. No, that's not true. Well, that's not true. And that's basically how the race went. Van Buren pulled enough votes in his native New York to hand the state to Taylor. So there's a theory, and third parties don't disagree with this, but it's true. Sorry, third parties. Third parties usually swing the vote for the way they don't want to. Because they split the vote between people who would normally vote for someone. So, to give a modern example, just because the most recent president, people who voted for Gary Johnson were probably more likely to vote for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. So, if anything, Johnson took away votes from Clinton and then gave votes to Trump. This was more in play with Bush and Gore, because I think it was Ralph Nader who was the third party.
I think so.
And Nader took votes from Gore, and more people voted for Bush because Nader split Gore. I think it was in Arizona. I could be wrong on the state. But Nader had a really specific portion of one state, whichever state he came from, and swung the vote. So third parties can often mess up things in a way that they don't mean to by trying to win. Farmers saw enough of Andrew Jackson to side with Taylor, and this would be proven the difference. Taylor won with a 5% margin in the popular vote and a 4-3 ratio in the Electoral College with 30 states voting.
Dang, okay.
So that is very slim.
Yeah.
That's about as narrowly as you can win.
Shoot.
This is interesting. Taylor and Fillmore didn't meet in person until after the election. Yeah. And didn't hit it off once they did.
Okay, hi, nice to meet you. P.S. I hate you.
So Fillmore, who was tall and stately and was very known to be well dressed, always looked like a politician, looked like $1 million. It clashed a little bit with Zachary Taylor, who's described as short. He had to be helped up onto his horse in battle. Oh, no. He rode into the horse side saddle. He was described as having very stumpy legs.
I'm Zachary Taylor.
And he was craggy and crass, and he was not well read at all. He'd actually never voted and won presidency. Yeah, isn't that wild?
I'm the Zachary Taylor of this duo right here. I'm the Zachary Taylor of Click to Learn More. I'm craggy and crass, and I need help getting on my horse. On my high horse.
Beautiful. Taylor quickly shut out Fillmore from most discussions, opting to bring in figures such as William H. Seward and, yep, he's back, Thurlow Weed.
But he didn't know anything.
Taylor?
Why not let Philly in there?
Because they didn't that's what the Eagles always ask. Why not let Philly in there?
Let the Philly in.
No, they just didn't agree very much. They didn't see eye to eye. And he knew Thurlow Weed, and he knew William Seward, who would contribute to Seward's Folly, The Purchase of Alaska.
Uh-huh.
But those were his guys, so that's who he brought in.
Dang. Politics might be crooked, I think, maybe.
Maybe just a little.
I think maybe, I don't want to make like a sweeping generalization here, but I think that maybe politics might sometimes be a little crooked.
When Fillmore was fulfilling one of his only roles he could...
Fillmore.
Oh, that's good.
Oh.
Click to learn Fillmore. It's very good. When Fillmore was fulfilling his roles on breaking vote in Senate sessions. If you don't know this, the vice president, one of the roles of the vice president is to break votes in case of a tie in the Senate. He was well regarded for his wisdom, humor, and ability to accommodate diverse views. So, shocker, the guy who had been a House representative, or representative in the House, knew how to handle people and different debates, and was well regarded by pretty much everybody as being a good dude.
Yeah.
Now's where we get to the interesting stuff. Well, not the interesting stuff, but...
I was going to say, it's already been interesting. What's he going to do now?
Now's where we get to, like, the most politically important stuff.
Okay.
As the slavery debate heated up, so did the pressure on the Taylor administration. Taylor enraged Southern statesmen by announcing his support in admitting California and New Mexico as free states. Now, I want to make it clear. They didn't do that, but he admitted his support of that.
Okay. So he would have done this
Yes.
thing.
Concurrently with this, Henry Clay, our boy, pitched the Compromise of 1850, which a lot of people refer to as the Great Compromise.
Yep.
In which, do you know what this actually entails? Because I had to look it up.
I don't remember. I used to, but I don't remember it now. That's been 84 years.
Utah and New Mexico would be admitted slaveless.
Okay.
California would be admitted as a free state. And slave auctions would be prohibited in D.C. So basically all the new territories would be some sort of free states. I think there was a difference between Utah, New Mexico, and California. I don't remember exactly.
Clay's trying to do it.
Yes, he's trying to get everybody to work together.
He's trying.
In exchange, and this is where it gets really dicey,
okay,
Clay pitched the fugitive slave law.
I can't help but notice that you said this is where it gets dicey, and then you said Clay, like Andrew does Clay. Okay, go ahead. I didn't have a funny goof.
When was the last time you have like a...
I didn't have a funny goof, like just like Andrew Dice Clay is the thing that popped into my mind. Because you said it gets dicey, and then you said Clay, and it just
it's very good.
I just needed to...
You know he was sampled on EMF's Unbelievable?
You told me that, and I didn't even know it.
Oh. That's Andrew Dice Clay.
See, I didn't know it.
That's
unbelievable.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Clay pitched the fugitive slave law. And you're going to cringe hearing this, but it's 1850, different time. Stating that any slaves caught in any states of the United States could be returned to slave owners if suspected of having been a fugitive slave. This allowed for no due process.
Yeah.
Meaning authorities could arrest any African American and claim them to be fugitive slaves, which horrified opponents of slavery.
Christ.
So basically, what authorities could do, and this was powered by U.S. Marshals, by the way. I didn't mention that. So the U.S. Marshals would ratify this, basically. They could just say, like, oh, that person's a slave. And then they would drive them to southern states
and just leave them.
And just say, like, whose slave is this?
But...
Of course anybody's going to claim them.
Someone could just walk up and be like, oh, they're mine?
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
It's terrible.
Ugh,
but
get it together, America.
Henry Clay was looking for some way to get... He was at least trying to bring the country together in a way.
Yeah.
Now, granted, of course that doesn't age well. Of course.
No.
We're not saying that.
Facts are facts, America.
But he did create some sort of compromise where most people weren't even trying. The bill, like so many others, got tied up in Senate limbo by summer. So he pitched this in like early February.
Okay.
And then Daniel Webster gave a speech in support of it that's known as the 7th of March speech. It's a pretty like influential speech. It's a good read. But then by summer it was just tied up in Senate limbo. I've stolen this directly from the Miller Center instead of rewriting it like I have with everything else because it reads so well that I love it. Fillmore watched much of the debate from the sidelines, isolated from the president's administration. Events, however, took a rapid turn.
Oh.
At a 4th of July celebration in 1850 on the White House lawn, the president sought relief from the oppressive heat and humidity, so Zachary Taylor, sought relief from the oppressive heat and humidity by gulping iced beverages in a large bowl of cherries. He suddenly began to experience intestinal cramps. It's likely that either the ice or the fruit was contaminated with cholera, a stomach ailment caused by unsanitary conditions that could, and frequently did, kill a person in scant hours in those times.
Yeah, you die in Oregon Trail of cholera.
Yes, and dysentery.
Yeah.
Physicians, resorting to the medical practices of the day, prescribed bleeding and opiates,
just cut 'em.
which only made things worse.
Yeah, you just cut 'em.
Within 5 days, Zachary Taylor was dead.
Ugh.
He had been president for just 16 months.
Death by cherries, man.
The presidency had suddenly fallen upon a forgotten man, Millard Fillmore, who had been all but banished from the Taylor administration and held opinions very different from the late chief executive, and was suddenly the president of the United States.
Okay, so he wasn't voted in. He became president because the president died.
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right. Poor Philly. All right.
He immediately replaced Taylor's cabinet with proponents of the compromise and threw the full weight of his administration behind its passage. End quote. That's all from the Miller Center. The Miller Center is fantastic. I was geeking out reading. There's a lot of stuff I didn't include for time. It's a really cool resource. I highly encourage you reading some of that stuff if you're interested. The compromise would pass by September. So...
Okay, so he got stuff done.
Yes. From July to September,
There we go.
he replaced his cabinet. His one thing was get this compromise through.
There we go.
And they got it through.
Yeah. He's a man of action.
By 1852, of course, Fillmore did other things with his presidency, but a lot of it was like just foreign and domestic stuff. Mm-hmm. This was really like the hallmark thing that happened during his presidency. By 1852, Fillmore was not enthusiastic about another 4 years as president. He didn't campaign and never fully came out and said that he was running for office. In fact, in March of 1851, when campaigns would have been starting ramping up, he planted a report in a newspaper ran by a buddy that he was retiring for office.
So he anonymously
Yes.
placed it? Okay.
So he was placing it almost if somebody leaked out, like, I know that Millard Fillmore is retiring.
So he's getting the word out ahead of time
Yes.
to get people ready for it because he's about to dip. He just wants people to know this is a possibility coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Then his Secretary of State, Daniel Webster, keeps coming up, announced his intention to seek the presidency.
Okay.
This didn't trouble Free Millie, as he was sympathetic toward Webster's longtime pursuit of the Oval Office. I love this, by the way. This is maybe the coolest thing I read about him.
Yeah.
As he was like,
Yeah, all right.
you.
Yeah, all right.
You're good.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm cool with it. At that point, like, he's done, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he doesn't care if someone else is coming for his spot. He don't care.
Fillmore even tried to withdraw from the 1852 race before Whig officials talked him out of it.
Oh.
The
So
Whig,
he's running it as a Whig. Okay.
the Whig Party was on its last strand. The three leading candidates, Fillmore, Webster, and Winfield Scott, the old senile guy, the pompous dude, old fluff and feathers or whatever I called him earlier, all had issues among the large Whig contention. Fillmore was disliked by abolitionists for advocating for the fugitive slave law. Webster was old and sick, and Scott was Andrew Jackson's right-hand man.
Everybody was over 30, so they were going to die in 5 years anyway.
Right, yeah,
You know,
could, yeah.
like, somebody's going to eat some messed up cherries and die in 5 days.
That's how Zachary
so
Taylor died.
you never know.
But I thought it was interesting that Scott was such cohorts with Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
A person who the Whigs basically hated.
Him.
They
Yeah.
absolutely hated him. So none of them were the ideal candidate. In June of 1852, Fillmore entered the Whig convention in early lead. This was in Baltimore. And Webster was seen as hopeless. Had he then endorsed Fillmore, Fillmore would have most likely won the nomination. Instead, Webster stayed stubborn, and those delegates eventually deferred to Scott. Now, I want to remind people that Zachary Taylor was nominated for the presidency by ballot 4.
Okay.
By ballot vote 53, Scott was given the nomination.
Shoot.
I would estimate that each of these ballot votes probably took 30 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
So that's a lot of voting.
Wow.
And that's the low estimate. I mean, I have no factual evidence to back that up, but I would imagine they took at least a little bit of time. And then I think there was like deliberation in between the ballot votes. This was the end of the Whig Party as a national force. Scott was so disliked by Southerners that they abstained or voted for Scott's Democratic opponent, Franklin Pierce.
Okay.
The skinny New Englander won with ease. That's Franklin Pierce. One of the most handsome presidents, according to a lot of people. Yeah, he's a good-looking dude.
He's right up there with one of the ones I wouldn't have remembered.
Yeah, Franklin Pierce is the one I always forget, too.
Yeah.
And Chester Arthur.
Yeah.
The escape from D.C. was a welcome one for Millard and Abigail, now with daughter Mary, who I never mentioned, but she was born.
Hey, they had a
She
kid.
existed.
So, I mean, but he wanted out. Anyway,
he wanted.
like,
Yeah,
he
was ready
was
to go.
done.
He was absolutely
The
ready
fact
to
that
go.
he could have won again after not wanting to campaign says a lot about him as a president. So
Yeah. Abigail was so ill that teenage Mary would even step in for hostess duties.
Oh.
So Abigail grew ill during the presidency, and Mary would have to like sometimes meet foreign diplomats and things like that because Abigail just couldn't do it.
being the family member of a president was tough.
Yes, very much so, and it's going
It
to get
still
tougher.
is, yeah.
Well, in this regard, it's getting
shoot.
tougher.
Oh no.
The presidency would take one last grasp at Millard's life, as during Franklin Pierce's long, rainy inauguration, Abigail caught pneumonia and died less than a month later. So because she had to be there to swear in the new president, she died. 2 years later, Mary would die at 22 from cholera.
No, so he's lost his wife and his child? He only had one child?
Yes, he's lost both of his family members.
He's lost his ladies.
Yeah. Looking for anything to get his mind off the loss of his loved ones, Fillmore found solace in politics.
Just when he thinks he's out, it pulls him right back in.
Whigs looking for a new party had formed the Know Nothing Party.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a terrible party name.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Do you know where the name comes from? Because I didn't.
I don't remember.
The name Know Nothing originated in the semi-secret organization of the party. When a member was asked about activities, he was supposed to reply, I know nothing.
Yeah, yep, I do remember this.
Outsiders derisively called them the Know-Nothings, which is a great way to retort that, like, oh, the Know-Nothings.
Yeah, they know nothing.
The idiots.
Yeah.
And the name just stuck.
Yeah.
The Know-Nothings advocated immigration restrictions and a waiting period for new citizens to vote, specifically Irish Catholic immigrants who were, tell me if this rings a bell, perceived threat to the workforce. So they didn't like immigrants who were perceived as threat to the workforce. Look at camera. Just saying.
Imagine that.
Fillmore refused to be part of the anti-immigrant message.
Cool.
But was made candidate in 1856 anyway, because he was the most well-known member of the party, where he received 21% of the vote, which swung the vote, like I said earlier, from Democratic candidate John C. Fremont to James Buchanan.
Hey.
Who was running under what would then become the Republican Party.
Okay.
Fillmore retired in Buffalo and married wealthy widow Carolyn McIntosh in 1858.
She made Apple computers.
Yes, that was her. Steve Jobs' grandma.
Here's a history lesson within a history lesson.
Yeah, you didn't think you were getting that little nugget.
Yeah.
She actually invented the big apple that comes out of the Mets stadium every time they hit a home run.
Yeah, she also discovered gravity when an apple hit her in the head.
That's also why they call it the Big Apple.
That is why they call it the Big Apple. That's true.
She was the Big Apple.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
He would go on to be active in many charities and causes, becoming a staunch Unionist in the Civil War, which happened from 1861 to 1865. He even helped organize financial and enlistment drives.
It didn't even occur to me that all of this is before the freaking Civil War.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, isn't that weird? The Civil War exists in such a strange time in my mind. Because it's like I know those dates, but to me it seems way earlier than that.
It almost seems like there's some kind of delineation there between, like, we fought the British, we're happy, now we're the U.S. Like, for some reason, that just, the fact that we had presidents and then we fought each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. The fact that we had a president and then we had a civil war is just, that's a weird.
No, I'm glad you said that because it does feel,
a weird thing
it feels very strange that the stuff I'm talking about and the dates I'm saying precede the Civil War.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of surprising for me to read all of this and think, God, the Civil War is later than I imagined.
Yeah.
Like the Civil War is not even 200 years ago
I didn't know we had that many presidents before the Civil War, I guess. Like that hadn't occurred to me as being a thing. But
it's a weird thing to put into context until it's put into context.
It's also probably something said against our education system.
Sure.
That we're surprised by this.
Another source I had for this was the Washington Post has a really cool podcast series called Presidential.
Oh, neat.
Where they talk about each president. And the woman who does the podcast brought on like a guy who was really into the they were in Virginia, or he knows Virginia, obviously, they're the Washington Post. But the Virginia Teachers Association, like the Common Core, doesn't actually follow National Common Core.
Oh.
And so he was talking about how they teach things differently because Common Core doesn't ever make note of Millard Fillmore. And they were saying that like the teachers wouldn't really say anything about him, but would also always like make note of him. Because Common Core is actually more interested in people not memorizing the names.
Yeah.
But rather, like, if I tell you something they did, then you can tell me the person that did it.
Ah.
So, like, you know, if you say who was, like, you name a presidential thing, then somebody can name the president that did it, as opposed to
what we were taught, which
just
is
naming a list.
Just, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, James K. Polk. There's somebody in between there. James K. Polk.
Yeah, you got further than I did.
Zachary Taylor,
well
Millard
done.
Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan, Abraham Lincoln. That's where I stop. I don't know.
Damn, well done.
I don't know where
that
we
was
go.
Impressive.
I don't know where we go after that. We had a teacher who used to make us remember all of that stuff, and also during tests he would play "We Didn't Start the Fire."
Okay.
And as you're trying to remember dates,
oh no,
and as you're trying to remember stuff on your test, it was AP US history, and in the background it's just like all of
Doris
these.
Day.
Yeah. Red China.
Joe DiMaggio wasn't a president.
Yeah, Joe DiMaggio. Stuff just playing in the background. And
That's awesome.
He was a terrible person.
So I feel like I was probably in the transition period because I remember my best history teacher in high school. I had two really good history teachers in high school. One from college and then one just that went to my high school. But I remember both of them had like posters in the room of just the list of presidents.
Yeah.
And because we were nerds, my little group of friends, we would just like look at it and then we would try to memorize every day. So we wouldn't look at it when we first came in, and we would just try to tell each other what the order is.
Yeah.
And then we would look back and see if we were right or not.
That's an interesting thing, though, that we can name the presidents, but like if you asked me, like, what's James K. Polk known for? Like, I
the polka? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He made eggs in a weird way. Like, I don't know.
Oh my god. That's very good.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think that's interesting. So anyway, it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah.
Because the professor that I was talking about earlier, Henry Roedinger, has said that the numbers haven't really shifted either way.
Dang.
So it might actually be better for them to do it that way.
Yeah.
Because if you're retaining information about what the president did, that might be better than just being able to name a list, because obviously that's not helping you name the list once you get to college.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't have it in my notes. Some people never forget the passing of the fugitive, or some people never forgot the passing of the fugitive slave law. However, when Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, a mob swarmed Fillmore's home and smudged black paint all over the opulent building.
Why?
Because he passed the Fugitive Slave Act. So abolitionists were just like, you were part of the problem, and just like,
yeah,
black paint.
okay, all right, but he didn't want to. Did he want to be part of that?
He wanted to. He was a very large proponent of the Great Compromise, which is what passed the Fugitive Slave Act.
Yeah.
So it was almost one of these things of like, I want to get something bigger done, and I have to do the bad thing to do it.
So Henry Clay, he and Henry Clay were just like,
yeah, they were the two
in
leading
about
forces,
that. Okay.
and then Daniel Webster, I guess you could consider a third because he gave that really big speech.
Okay, yeah, all right, I get that. Okay.
Millard Fillmore died of a stroke in 1874.
But he had remarried. Did he have any other children?
That I don't know of.
Okay.
It didn't make mention of that, but I'm not sure. I mean, he would have been 58 when he married her. So odds.
Yeah, I don't know.
And she was a widow herself, so who knows?
Yeah.
Some people never. Or sorry, I read that already. It's often said that the best compromises please no one.
Yeah.
Millard Fillmore knew this better than anyone. Much of his political career hinges on his advocacy of the Compromise of 1850. He can rightfully be credited for delaying the Civil War for a decade with his approach, but he also allowed the fugitive slave law to be enacted. Yeah. Really, nobody wins.
Yeah, that's fair.
He also handled contentious points in Cuba, Hawaii, Eastern Europe, and Central America very well. So he did do other things as president, but that was the big thing I wanted to touch on. But the history books, and it seems the layman, have forgotten old Mill Smith.
There it is.
On his death, President Grant issued a very standard statement, and no mourning was had by the Americans.
Oh.
So my hope with this episode is that maybe, just maybe, this episode will help you remember Millard Fillmore a little more fondly.
Aww.
So there's something that you might not know about a president you might not remember, and hopefully you can remember him now. I thought it was really cool that he seemed like kind of a stand-up guy a little bit,
like
for the time.
He tried, it seems. It's hard to like reference the past now and put what we would like a positive spin on something that happened in the past.
Context is everything,
right? I mean, it's interesting to think back. I didn't know that he was so close to Henry Clay. Like
I
didn't know he and Henry Clay were so connected.
That was a happy accident.
Yeah,
because they brought it back to Kentucky.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that they. If anybody doesn't know, look up Henry Clay. He has ties in Kentucky.
Yeah, he has 2 counties named after him.
He tried to be president multiple times and failed.
Yeah, once with Fillmore, and then once again after Zachary Taylor ran, and he failed then too. Mm-hmm. It was, and once before, I think he ran 3 times total.
Oh, there's some really great quote about it that I can't remember. That's like. Someone told him, like, I will be this when you become president. And it was, like, never going to happen. In other words, it was never going to I'm going to have to look it up now because I feel like a dummy. But it was a very good burn against Henry Clay. And I just remember thinking that was funny, even though he's from Kentucky.
I think in the U.S. Senate for Kentucky is a statue of Henry Clay. It's been a while since I've been there, but I think that's who the statue was of.
Yeah. He's definitely got statues erected of him, maybe in the Capitol. Yeah. For sure. Like, he's one of our main figures, but... I wanted to root for him. Yeah. But he's got, I don't know. But
the interesting sorry to cut you off. No, you're fine. Interesting thing with Fillmore too is that he always, in this weird underhanded way, kind of blamed he was very susceptible to smaller movements influencing what he thought would happen. Yeah. So like when he lost the New York gubernatorial race, which is a great word. He blamed it on the Catholic immigrants.
Yeah.
And then he joined the party. Now, granted, he opposed it, but he joined the party that was against Irish immigrants.
Right.
They also called themselves the Native American Party, which I thought was really interesting before they called them the Know Nothings. And then he like blamed abolitionists for his VP loss. He blamed Thurlow Weed for a lot of stuff. Like, I get that, yeah, he was probably right in the Thurlow Weed case, but a lot of the times he wanted to look for blame somewhere.
Yeah, he didn't really take the responsibility, it seems.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was apparently super popular because he didn't want to run again. Yeah. Everybody was willing to vote for him. But I like learning stuff about presidents that I didn't know previously, especially when they have such fun names to dunk on.
Yeah, Millard Fillmore is a very fun name to pun with.
Millie Philly.
Yeah.
I love it. That's very fantastic, though. I learned a lot of stuff about Millard
Thanks.
Fillmore
I felt very satisfied looking over my notes one last time.
You told me you were excited. You were like messaging me and texting me and like, I cannot wait to tell you about, and I was like, a crusty old white dude. And you were like, about Millard Fillmore, and I was like, check, that's it.
Yeah,
crusty old white dude. A crusty old white dude.
He's interesting.
There's so many parts of like early American history that I feel like I should know that I just don't know.
Sure.
That I either was never taught or didn't retain in some way. And I think that's super interesting to go back now and like picking up on stuff that I was taught in school.
And it jogs the memory a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I remember reading about some of this stuff. And I was like, okay,
Free Soil Party, Know Nothing Party, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I recognize this, but I don't know why. Yeah. So that's really interesting. I like that.
I think it's so interesting. I was telling Lidi this before we started. I don't think it's really come out yet. I'm a really big American history nerd. Like, I really like history.
You can just say big nerd.
True, but specifically, I really love history. Like, we've talked about books before, and I'm way more likely to read a nonfiction book than I am fiction.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that came out in me reading this. I was like so excited reading the Miller Center stuff. Like I had to edit some stuff down. There were things I wrote and I was like, nah, it's not as important as it should be.
You just looked so excited just talking about it just now.
I don't know. I just find something so rewarding in things that really happened.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
I thought it was a nice counter to cryptids, which may not happen at all.
That's true.
I went about as concrete as I could.
That's kind of a representation of our friendship right there, I think, in a way, because I'm over here like, ghosts, cryptids, murder, and you're over here like, we're gonna go with facts.
Listen to this thing that happened like 150 years ago.
Listen to this thing that actually happened. And I'm like, water bears. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. Where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/Stormstreams. Where can people find you?
Twitch.tv/Team Lidi.
We also have Twitter.
We have t-shirts.
We have Instagram.
Mm-hmm. We have all kinds of stuff. Yeah. We have this YouTube channel.
Yeah, this one? This little
one?
Thing?
This, you found us here.
Oh, hi.
We have a podcast, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Click to Learn More.
Are you advertising the podcast in the podcast?
Yeah, because I realized we just talked about YouTube, and maybe someone is listening that's not on YouTube.
Gotcha.
Like... You can go watch our dumb faces talk about the same thing you just
If you like the episode and you haven't, leave us a ranked review.
Yeah.
That helps us with metrics and stuff. I don't know how it does it. I think the nerds at Apple are just like,
yeah,
they got a review. Move them up.
They did it. Give them a high five. Yeah, I don't know how it works.
I don't know how that works, but I've heard it helps.
If you like
every podcast I listen to is like, give us a rating review. It really helps us out.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it helps us out.
Smash that like and subscribe.
Yeah. Smash it as hard as you can. Smash it like Millard Fillmore would smash the gavel on the Compromise of 1850.
That's terrible.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you want to leave us a review, feel free.
Yeah, help us out.
If you didn't like our show, don't be mean.
And if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that crap.
Oh god, I love reading comments. Make them nice.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Say something nice about Dorm's shirt.
Thanks.
Because God knows I won't. But I'm the Zachary Taylor of this combo.
I'm not very fulfilled.
I'm the Zachary Taylor of this duo. Oh.
Well,
I feel attacked.
Until next time.
Watch where you click.